What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday, June the 11th, 2024, 7:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voiceman Studios in Toronto, Canada. This is episode 266 of McRae Live, and tonight, I want to know what you would say if you had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad. Now listen, really think about this. Don't just talk. I mean, if you actually had 5 minutes with the man, you walked into his office, his secretary said, you've got 5 minutes. You walk into his room, he says, you've got 5 minutes. What do you want to see? What do you think I should do? What do you think is going to give us the best probability of success? Remember, he's a producer. He's a businessman. He wants money. Let's really think about this. What do we need to do? That could be difficult for some fans, right? You got to, maybe you're thinking as a fan, but then you got to think about it from the business side of the industry, and let's really think about this. Don't toss arbitrary things. Make a sequel to Halloween Resurrection. It's never going to happen. That would be a waste of your 5 minutes. It would be a waste of your 5 minutes, I'm telling you. But maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's what you want, and maybe you're willing to take the risk. Maybe you're willing to take the risk. I don't know, folks. I don't know. Maybe you're willing to take the risk. I can tell you right now, if I had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad, that would not be what I'd spend my 5 minutes on. But, I thought this would be a fun show to do because I really kind of want to see. I think it's kind of an interesting opportunity to, see where the pulse of the fandom is. I like to do that from time to time. I mean, we're always talking Halloween on this channel at some point, obviously when the news is sort of, not really there, obviously the Halloween shows are a little more on the back burner, but we do talk Halloween a lot on the channel, of course, and every now and then I like to test the pulse of Halloween fans. I like to see where Halloween fans are. We know that Miramax has got a Halloween television series in the works. We know that there's been rumblings of a video game. We know that there's probably going to be something to do with feature films. I don't know. And I thought, if I had 5 minutes in a room with Malek Akkad, I know what I would say. But this show isn't about me today. We know what I would say. At least if you follow me for any length of time, you know probably what I'm going to say. You could probably guess at least a couple of sentences. And I don't want this show to be about me today. I want this show to be about you, Halloween fans. It is Tuesday, June the 11th, 2024. We've had 13 Halloween movies. 12 of them have had Michael Myers. I think that's right. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that's right. We just finished the David Gordon Green trilogy. There were some good things. There were some not so good things. It was very divisive at the end of the day, especially the last installment. But here we are. You have 5 minutes in a room with Malek Akkad. What would you say? He says, okay, listen, you've got 5 minutes. Pitch to me what you think I should do. Now, keep in mind, you're actually, picture this, you're actually talking to the man. So, am I going to really take that time to say Halloween? Hey, I think we should do a sequel to Halloween Resurrection. Because you know what he's going to say? No. But maybe that's what you want. And if you have a great pitch, and you've got all your ducks in a row, and you can really sell it. That's what the show's about today. Whether it's live in the chat room, whether it's after the fact in the comment section below. Speak to Malek. Maybe he'll watch this one day. Maybe he'll read the comments. You never know. You never know who's watching. I've learned a lot by doing the YouTube thing. And one of the things I've learned, and I'm not suggesting that he is paying attention, I'm just simply saying one of the things I have learned is that you never know who's watching you. You'd be surprised who's reached out to me over the years. You never know who's watching you. And so if you had your opportunity, 5 minutes with Malek, what would you say? And you better be prepared because you've only got 5 minutes. So saying something like, I think you should do a sequel to Halloween Resurrection because I think it's one of the best in the franchise. That's not going to do it. He's going to go, okay, and, right? No one cares. I don't care. Okay, so you think it's the best in the franchise? Yeah, well, the box office didn't. And, certainly the last 20 years haven't been kind to it. And, no, we're not going to, no, I have no interest in, what? Yeah, but I really like it. No. So what would you do? How would you spend that 5 minutes? Right? It's like Shark Tank, or in Canada, we have Dragon's Den. But that's what it's like. You've got 5 minutes. If you've watched Shark Tank, you've watched pitches epically fail, and you've watched pitches hugely succeed. And if you watch the show, what are the pitches that usually succeed? Okay, well, they do tend to have, good numbers, right? Maybe some good sales, a lot of interest. But generally speaking, they have great pitches, right? They're well-spoken. They're great communicators. They know their shit. And they can sell it. Even if the product seems kind of like, you have to make him believe. So if you want a sequel to Halloween Resurrection, you have to make him believe it's the best fucking idea of all time. Not just because you want one. How is it going to make money? How are we going to get everybody on board? Right? It's a lot harder than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it? Or isn't it? But this is how I'm thinking, right? Okay, you want a sequel to Halloween Resurrection. Okay. Well, pitch it, sell it. You got 5 minutes with the man. You want a sequel to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Okay, pitch it. You got 5 minutes. Well, I really like the movie and I think it's really cool and I want one. Not going to do it. Not going to cut it. Out next. You know what I'm saying? Right? You're sweating. You're sweating now, aren't you? You're sweating. I don't know what to do. Hey, this is the reality, right? Maybe you want a sequel to Halloween 3. All right? Let's hear it. What's it going to be, right? What's it going to be, ladies and germs? And so I thought this would be kind of a fun show to see what people could say. Now, I know there's only so much you can say in the chat room and your, little blurbs, but, I can get a good sense on whether or not you are giving more than just a surface level response. Give me a log line. Pretend I am Malek Akkad. Here I am, Mr. Malek Akkad. Yes, thank you. How are you? I don't think he sounds like that. I'm just trying to sound very businesslike and professional. All right, you lackey. What do you want? No, but I mean, hey, give me a log line, right? Give me a mini synopsis. Sell it. Give me a mini synopsis, right? Just something with a hook. Something makes me go, ooh, I don't know. What would you do? 5 minutes with Malek Akkad. What would you do? What would you say? That isn't just, I'll give you an example. So, I don't know if this is the best example, but for some reason it popped into my head while you guys mull over that. And then I'll head over to the chat room here in a second. So about 20 years ago, I was in Los Angeles attending an acting convention. I'd flown out to LA and I was a part of this big acting convention and we were competing and doing monologues and all kinds of stuff, competing against each other. And there were agents there that were watching us and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I've ever told this story or not, but, excuse me. I remember, I won for my monologue. I was up against, actors from the New York Academy of Acting or whatever it is, or New York School of Acting, whatever it was. I was up against a lot of people and I won. And I also, I won first place for monologue and I won first place for my soap opera. And my soap opera what that simply means is that it's like a monologue, right? But it's a soap opera script, and you are playing opposite another actor, and you have to, do your thing, right? And while I was in line outside, waiting to go in and perform in front of these agents and in front of these groups of people, right? I could hear a little bit from what people were doing. Now, I was prepared. I had, the script. But I noticed that the other actors were kind of doing similar things in terms of, now we were all reading from the same script. We were all reading from the same characters, right? It's like auditioning. But they were all kind of doing the same kind of thing. Like it's soap opera-y. So they were kind of being a little melodramatic, a little, you know what I'm saying? And I decided to turn it on its head. Instead of being all like, oh, baby, very soap opera-y, I decided to be more angry. Hey, sit down. Now listen. As opposed to, oh, please sit down, listen. You know what I'm saying? And it turned the whole thing on its head. And I could see out of my peripheral, I could see the agents, who were the judges, suddenly go like this and look up. I had their attention. Now, I can't remember the script. This is years ago. But I remember being, instead of playing it passively, I played it aggressively. And that won me first place. And so in that particular category. And so it's a weird example. I don't know why that memory popped into my head, but I think you know what I'm saying, right? Like you've got 5 minutes, right? I had like 5 minutes. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to, what am I, you know what I'm saying? Am I going to get in there and just do what, the 30 other people have done? Sure. Okay, fine. But how are you going to stand out, right? So that's basically what I mean. That's a weird example, but I think you get the idea. I think you get the idea. All right, let's go over to the chat room and see what all you are saying now. You've heard what I've had to say, folks. Let me see. There was a member chat came in from Sean Sheridan. Hello, Sean. Thank you very much. He's been a member for 2 months. Amazing. He says, "Go the season of the witch route and let Myers rest. You can do no more with the character. What's next? Send him to space." Now I know Sean had sent that in before I started into my own monologue here about how I want you to handle this. So the Sean, I will just say that I think Season of the Witch is a cool angle to go with. Absolutely. Nick Jenny sends in $4.99 and says, "I'd suggest start fresh, reimagine it. Or wait about 5 years and do a remake, but keep it suspenseful and in the heart of the original." Now, Nick, I would say to you, well, okay, you want a remake. Do you want me to, do you want us to just so we're just doing the same thing over again, but just with different characters? So it's going to be set in 1978. It's going to be about the 6-year-old child who kills his 16-year-old sis on Halloween night, and then he gets locked up for 15 years and escapes and comes out. Are we just doing the same thing over again, but just with different characters? Or do you want us to reimagine it somehow or whatever? How are we doing this here? How are we doing this here? But I like the track you're on, Nick. I like the track you're on. Yes, okay. Amadusius has been a member for 9 months, sends in a member chat and says, "I would pitch that Halloween needs an extended break." Okay. "With every new movie, even if it's a recalibration, it's going to be diminishing returns. Let people miss Michael for a while." All right. You know what? I kind of agree with you, buddy. I do. I see the value in that. And if you had 5, again, I understand that there's only so much you can write here on the chat room. Maybe you can extend that in the comment section below. But I do understand what you're saying, right? It's kind of like, hey, listen, I almost bit my tongue there. Hey, listen. Sound like Mike Tyson. Listen, Malek, I know you want to strike while the iron's hot, but we don't want to overstay our welcome here. Maybe we should kind of, wait a little bit, a few years at least, maybe till the 50th anniversary. Maybe between now and the 50th anniversary, we can figure out what would be, because we can take our time with it, really noodle it, really flesh it out, really come up with some great ideas, and see maybe what the best course of action is. There's no need to rush immediately into a television series or into another movie or whatever the case is. So, that could be a valuable pitch. it could be something that he might sit back and go, well, maybe, right? I don't know. I mean, you may be right. You may be right. You may take it into consideration. Josh McKenna sends in a very generous super chat of $49.99. Thank you, Josh. I really appreciate that, buddy. He says, have you ever gotten a sketchy DM? I once received a DM from a friend who offered me a job as a cameraman. They refused to answer my questions. They wouldn't give an address or plot. I asked something only my friend would know. They blocked me. I've never received a sketchy DM like that. Certainly I've received clearly like spam, hacker type stuff, sending links and, you never click on any links, right? Things like that. And obviously I've received DMs from, viewers that are just trolls and, don't know their asses from their elbows and are just, angry over something I've said. It's like, oh, okay, like I care. And that kind of stuff. But I've never received anything like that, anything suspicious like that. And if I do, I just delete it right away. Like I'm pretty good at, figuring out whether something is legit or not, right? So yeah, keep vigilant, Josh. Keep vigilant. And thank you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate that. Lee the Machine Bauer sends in a very generous super chat of $19.99 and says, if I was in Malek's office, I'll tell him, give Michael a fresh start. No more Jamie Lee Curtis. Her story is done. And please, no more unmasking Michael. Stop showing us diehard fans Michael's face and bring back Aaron Armstrong as Michael. Okay, I like the way that you're setting this up, Lee. I like this. That's, okay. My next question, if we were in the office, I'd probably say, well, do you have an idea? Do you have any idea, like a premise? Where should it be set? Do you have any ideas? What do you think? But I tend to agree with you. I think if we are going to move forward with Halloween, which obviously they will, look, if you follow me for any length of time, you know how I am. You know that I am right now in my Halloween fandom right now, and I'm allowed to change my fucking mind. But right now, June the 11th, 2024, I could not care less whether they made anything Halloween ever again for the history of time. And that is not because I hate Halloween. It's because I am a Halloween fan, and my Halloween fandom is fulfilled. I have the good, the bad, the ugly. You've heard me talk about this. And so, I don't feel like I feel full. I don't feel like I need another Michael Myers movie. I mean, I'm good. I'll just watch the ones we have and I'm good. But that's me, right? I recognize that a lot of other people are different. And so I'm with you. Like the last thing I want, really, of course, I'll be there day one. But if you ask me what I don't want just to do the same story over again, just with different characters in a different time period. Maybe it is time to let it rest. Maybe it is time to focus on Season of the Witch. Maybe it is time to focus on, the Charlie Bowles thing. Or maybe it is time to focus on, an anthology series or something that, I don't know, because, I just don't know. And I only speak for myself, obviously, but I just don't know what else you do with the Myers character. And I know there's a lot of fans that would love to see a Halloween 4 Part 2. And although nothing is impossible, like I said the other day on my Q&A show, and like I said during the McRae live episode from a couple of months ago where I talked about this, the probability of that happening is next to nothing. Because it's important that Halloween fans remember that our circle, our world is very small. And Malek Akkad likely has absolutely unequivocally no interest in doing a Halloween 4 Part 2 for a variety of reasons, some of which are it would be incredibly confusing to the general movie-going audience, and how you market a movie like that today, and how you appeal to people like that today, to people with a film like that today. It's that doesn't mean that there isn't an avenue where it could be done. Like maybe you do a little mini series, like maybe the Halloween TV series. Let's hypothetically say is a anthology series. So maybe that's where you do your Halloween 4 Part 2. It's like a 3 or 4 part little mini series. Danielle Harris comes back. It's like a what if. It's fun. But to make a theatrically released movie, It's just not going to happen. There's a reason why they haven't done it yet. Okay. And it's largely because of what I'm talking. Why did they decide to do Halloween 18 instead of Halloween 4 Part 2? You know, they've rebooted it several times since. Why haven't they? Because it's messy, it's strange, it's weird. They need to appeal to the general movie-going audience, not Halloween fans. And I say this, and I try to hammer this point home because it is so important that Halloween fans understand, and fans understand, that your world, our fandom is tiny compared to the general movie-going audience. And they want to appeal to everybody, not just you. You will be there no matter how shitty the trailer is. You will buy a ticket. The general movie-going audience won't. And so that's why you see a lot in trailers. That's why you get upset at trailers, because they're showing too much. Yeah, they're showing too much for you, not for your neighbor down the street who's too busy taking his son to T-ball every week, who's a movie fan, but maybe not a Halloween fan. Or maybe he doesn't know he's a Halloween fan. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what it's all about. They don't just want to appeal to the fans, because if they just wanted to appeal to the fans, they would throw up a 10-second trailer that had the title and Michael breathing, and that would be it, right? Because we'd all be there. We'd all love it. But they can't do that. It's about appeasing fans and getting new fans on board. And a Halloween 4 Part 2, unless they leaned into it, into a gimmicky, shticky sort of hook kind of angle with like this little 3-part miniseries with Danielle Harris, like a creep show anthology kind of thing, sure. But a major motion picture, a major theatrical release that costs $5-10 million or, $15 million to make, and then you spend another $30 million trying to market? No, ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It will not happen. But hey, if that's what you want, right? If that's what you want, and you had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad, you have to, like, that's the kind of thing where if you want a Halloween 4 Part 2, look how I've been talking here, right? All the ideas I have and ways that you could do a Halloween 4 Part 2. If I had 5 minutes with Malek and I really wanted a Halloween 4 Part 2, this is the ammunition that I would come with, right? I would come with it laid out. I know what I'm going to say. I know what I want to say, and I would lay it out, as best as I can. And, but you got to be prepared. And again, I understand that we can't say that much here in the chat, but I just mean, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about, right? Like when you pitch something, when you want to pitch something, you've got to be so prepared. When you're pitching to investors or the people with the money, you got to know your shit. You got to know your shit, and you got to know what you're talking about. Because if there's a kink in the armor, if there's a crack in that chain, they're going to see right through it, and you're going to start sweating. The moment you feel not confident, the moment you feel that, oh shit, it's gone. And we've seen it. We've seen it on shows like Shark Tank and, Dragon's Den. We've seen it where it's like, fuck, And when you come across not confident, or you don't know your stuff, or you're too surface level, right? You're like 1 or 2 sentences and that's it. And it's like, okay, you come across as incompetent as a business person, right? And so I know I'm probably taking some of the fun out of this, but that's how I think, right? That's how I think. But yes, Lee, I agree with a lot of what you said there. Let me see here. Let me get some of these other super chats here. Christopher Gomez sends in $5, says, one anthology movie in same vein as Creepshow or Twilight Zone movie. Each segment gives closure to each timeline, bookend by patient Chuck Bowles. Ooh, okay. Christopher, I like it. I think that's a great beginning. And you would have me asking questions. Rather than showing you the door, you would have me asking questions. I would want to poke your brain a bit further, see how much more you've thought about this. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. I don't know if he would go for that, but hey. Carl Weidman sends in $5. Thanks, Carl. Says, I'd suggest an anthology series starting with a remake of Halloween 3. Season 2 could be Old Man Charlie Bowles. Each story set on or around Halloween. I think that's another great one. I'm it's no secret that I'm very much in favor of the anthology route because I'm just Michael Myers'd out. Like, I'll just be honest with you. And again, that's not me hating on Michael, although I know there are some fans out there that, you know, can't instill nuance and think that I'm just hating, but I'm really not. It's just me saying that I'm done. Like, I'm complete. I don't need to see, like, I'm good. You know, I'm kind of like I'm Michael Myers out. So, but if they make another Michael Myers movie or it's a Michael Myers, you know, TV show, of course I'll be there. I'm a fan, right? I want to check it out, you know, if it's any good. And maybe they'll be able to deliver something and a particular angle or an angle to the story or an angle to the character that doesn't remove the DNA, but instills some freshness to it and elevates it a bit and makes me realize, oh, wow, this is a whole kind of Halloween I didn't even know I was missing. This is great. This is fantastic. Very much what I think they should do with Jason and Friday the 13th. But I'm with you. Karl. I think it would be interesting to go the anthology route. I know a lot of fans don't like that and don't want to do that because they point to Halloween 3 just, you know, doing terrible at the box office. But it's like, well, yeah, but that was 1982. And it was before social media. It was before the internet. It was before, I mean, unless you were, you know, reading Fangoria magazine or somehow really connected to the sweaty, nerdy spaces. And when I say spaces, I mean like friends. I don't mean online spaces because the internet fucking wasn't around. You didn't know fuck all. Like, I mean, the term anthology wasn't even in the zeitgeist. It is now. It is in the pop culture movie zeitgeist now. And in some ways, people have leaned heavily into, I don't want to say heavily, but they've anthology films can be more accepting today, can be interesting. I mean, they're essentially spin-offs, really, right? You know, things that kind of, they're stories that can take place in the same universe. And I think doing a Halloween anthology series today, where you said you do like a season that is, you know, Season of the Witch, you do Charlie Bulls, you don't have to rely on Michael Myers. But you can connect it at the same time. I'm not suggesting, and I don't think Karl would be suggesting, that you remove Michael's existence. His story's done. So you just do other stories set within the universe. That's another great idea, right? So if you had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad, that is another idea that you know, you may want to pitch, right? Karl may say, hey, listen, you know, Malek, I think we should do this. I don't think we should remove Michael's history. I think we should like do the Charlie Bowles thing, set it in Russellville, you know, have one of the main characters drive through Haddonfield, right? Maybe there's a mention of that kid from Haddonfield, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, so you feel Michael's presence even when you're watching another story. It feels connected. It feels like the same universe. And I think today in 2024, that would, if it's done really well and it's really great writing with great characters and it's very scary, I think it would fly today. I really do. Fans are funny, and I do understand it. I do. I mean, listen, I'm a fan as well. I totally get it. But there's been so many examples where fans will get their knickers in a twist over something, and then something is delivered and it ends up being great. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I knew that. It's like, no, you fucking didn't. No, you didn't. Shut up. No, you didn't. You were bitching and moaning and complaining. But then again, that's online fandom and everybody has to be, you know, pretend to be outraged. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it because I don't know what else you can do with Michael Myers. Unless it's, Halloween 4 Part 2, Halloween Resurrection Part 2, Rob Zombie, you know, Halloween Part 3. It's like, well, yeah, but I don't think they're going to do that. I really don't think, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to speak for Malek. Malek, if you ever watched this, chime in. He's not going to chime in, but whatever. I really don't think Malek is going to want to do anything else within those old films. I don't think he's going to want to spend money, time, and energy on Halloween 4 Part 2 or Halloween Resurrection Part 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, what? No, let's move on from that. Let's keep going and not go back, right? And to that I say, well, then what else can we do? Unless, and this is another thing, if I had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad, one of the things that I would pitch, and I'd probably take Tony along with me, Tony Michael, the co-host of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, which has been on hiatus for a while here because Tony's been so busy. But we came up with that idea together about that film noir idea, right? And you could even turn that into a series where you're telling the story again, but you're reimagining the story. So it's a story about, Sam Loomis, who isn't a doctor. He's a detective. He's a police detective from Chicago. And, he wears a trench coat and maybe a fedora. You set it in the 1950s. You've heard me talk about this, right? Imagine this. This would be one of my pitches to Malek. 1950s, right? Americana, right? Still very a conservative sort of, time. It's before the 1960s sexual revolution of the Beatles and Woodstock and free love and birth control and all that kind of stuff. When it really ramped up, and so it was still kind of very, innocent, conservative, the nuclear family, everybody having dinner together and, Leave It to Beaver and all that kind of stuff. That was very much the 50s. So let's set it in the 50s, right? There's that innocence. And under the darkness of this Americana innocence is this very dark, evil thing that happens. And so you set it in this little town of Haddonfield in Illinois, right? And I would say that, and maybe you make it black and white, right? So it's very film noir, and you make it very scary, and it's about Michael Myers, right? And his sister Judith, but they're more around the same age. Judith is maybe 16, 17, Michael's maybe 13, 14, so we can put them in the same school together potentially. And so that's a different dynamic right there, right? And then of course a murder happens. So it doesn't open on Halloween, or maybe it does, but then we fast forward to the next year, and maybe it's like a week before or whatever, but there's a string of murders that are happening in the town. The police force isn't over its head because it's a small town. It's 1950s. What the fuck? So they bring in this big city detective, Sam Loomis, to come in and investigate. And it becomes like this really psychological, mature psychological horror series, film maybe, but certainly a series. And it's dark, it's moody, it's atmospheric, it's scary. You have your kills in there, and kind of that's from a different perspective we haven't seen before, right? That's Halloween again, but it's reimagining Halloween. It's not just doing the same thing. So what are we going to do, Malek? I say, so we're going to do the so we're going to do it again? We're just going to do it again. We're just going to do it again. We're just going to do it again. So what you're saying is that we're just going to do it again. We're just going to go, Michael Myers, 6 years old, kills his older sister, gets put away for 15 years, and comes back, and goes after, Judith, or not Judith, Lori and Annie and Linda, and speed kills, and then bum, we're just going to do it again. We're just going to do it again. We're just going to do literally it again. No, let's not do it again, because we've done it now. You've done it twice, actually. Now, you did it with, 1978 and 2007. So I kind of think, well, hang on. Here's a bit of a different perspective. Is my 5 minutes up? I don't know. But that would be something that I would pitch to him and say, what about this? And really kind of look at it and think about it, right? The innocence of the time period, that contrast, right? That juxtaposition. Oh, you could really play into that, and it would be fascinating. Really, really cool. So yeah, Karl, I'm with you there, anthology, all that kind of stuff. Okay, Nick Jenny sends in $9.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, change the characters and time period too. Can still be Michael Myers and maybe Loomis. Change his origin. Maybe not killing his sister this time. Have the town take his escape more seriously. There you go, right there. I mean, some of what you said there could even fit into sort of my pitch with the 1950s film noir sort of thing too. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I like it. Josh McKenna, $9.99 says, I would pitch a whole movie of Michael doing nothing but keeping the rack out of the coffin. That's right. Exactly. I see what you did there, Josh. I see what you did there. Let me see here. And then, hang on. We got a member chat coming in from Mike Mack. He's been a member for 4 months. Thank you, Mike. Says, I tell Malek the flashback from H Kills was arguably universally loved. You are correct. I like this. Mike, I like where Mike's thinking, baby. I like where Mike's thinking. Whether it's a reboot or sequel to the OG, I'd love to get Myers back in the 80s with a white, clean mask. Okay, I'm digging sort of the premise. I'm digging kind of what you're saying here. It's like, okay, if I can, I'll see if I can, piggyback off you a bit here. So it's like, yeah, let's set it, make it a period piece, set it in the 80s, Okay, we're setting it in the 80s. So we can give Michael a clean mask. That's fair. And yeah, like that would up your budget. That would up your budget because then it becomes a period piece. So now all the cars, the costumes, the locations, the signage, telephone, set decoration, set dressing, everything is period now, right? So it's going to cost a lot more money than it would cost to set it in present day, where you don't you don't necessarily have to worry about those things. But I like what you're saying. I don't know if it would equal the pile of cash that you think it might, but certainly there's stuff to noodle there, Mike. There's stuff to think about, and that's a good start. Like there's definitely things to noodle and think about and sort of stem off of. So I like your thinking. I like your thinking because it's true. The flashback in Halloween Kills was arguably universally loved, and why? Because it felt like the OG, right? It felt like the OG, and my, yeah, geez. I mean, look, I suspect that anything in the future that they do is not going to be relating to the Halloween film from 1978. No matter which timeline, apart from Rob Zombie and Halloween 3, but no matter which timeline you like to watch or talk about or discuss, the only movie that is canon in all the timelines, except for Rob Zombie and Halloween 3, is the original film. Even Halloween 2 is negated, in the David Gordon Green trilogy. So, if Malek said, yeah, look, I'm gonna go back and include, he might. The only thing I would say is that I would find it interesting if they did almost like an alternate version of Halloween 2, but then why would you do that? Why would you do that? Maybe to void out the brother-sister story arc and to sort of cancel out the explosion at the end of the movie, maybe, perhaps. That would be the only reason why you would do an alternate Halloween 2. Because I still think to this day, Halloween 2, 1981, is the best sequel in the franchise. It feels most like the original. That's largely because it's only 3 years removed from the original. So the film stock and the production value and everything, I mean, hairstyles and, people's ages obviously are not that much different. So it feels very much like a natural extension. But I as much as I do love the flashback in Halloween Kills, and I would not have minded watching an entire movie like that, it'd be very expensive, and the justification for it would have to be so sound and so solid. But Malek may be open to hearing it. He may be open to hearing it. All right, hang on. I just want to make sure I get all these. I don't want to miss any. Mike Warner sends in $5. Thanks, Mike, and says, I'm Michael'd out as well, but the way DGG did him in Ends can't be the end. Michael getting abused by a nerd who got bullied by band geeks, pathetic. Yeah, it can't be the end. Well, it is the end. It's the end of that, right? Unless they were going to, it depends on how you look at it, right? If they were to do another Michael Myers, it wouldn't be the same Michael Myers, right? It'd be a different Michael Myers, unless they were going to go back again. I hope they don't do that. I hear what you're saying though, but it won't be the last. Look, it's not going to be the last. Despite the fact that I'm the kind of Halloween fan that I am Michael Myers out, and at this present time anyway, I couldn't care less whether they made anything Michael Myers ever again. Not because I didn't like Halloween Ends. I wasn't a big fan of Halloween Ends, but I didn't hate it like a lot of you did. But my sort of Michael Myers out is not because I didn't like what they did with him. It's because I'm Michael Myers out. I don't know what else you do with him that is fresh and that is new. But also playing it safe. Right? A lot of fans, and rightly so, because fans have been burned many, many, many times, so I do understand it. But I ran into this talking about the Friday the 13th fiasco. A lot of fans are not willing to take risks. They're not willing to take risks. They because they've been burned, they've been wronged, they've been cheated out, they've been betrayed with all the nonsense and the garbage, and so I do understand the extreme apprehension, and I think most fans would rather play it safe and watch the same thing over and over again because it's comforting and it's nostalgic, and I think, like, I can tell you that as a fan, but also as a filmmaker and as somebody who has a good grasp on the industry, so maybe I look at it a bit differently from a different perspective. But if a article released tomorrow in Bloody Disgusting and Variety that said new Halloween movie in development and the premise is like my 1950s film noir thing, I'd be very excited. I'd be like, oh, now that's stepping out of your comfort zone, right? As a Halloween fan, that's asking Halloween fans to step out of their comfort zone. This isn't the same thing, right? Now, that doesn't mean we're going to butcher everything you love about Halloween. There are ways to deliver something fresh, new with a reimagining and still make it feel like Halloween. Of course there is. But that's the balance, right? That's the catch. That's what you got to do. But there are a lot of fans that wouldn't like that. I tell you right now, I don't want to say most fans, but I'll say there's at least a loud portion of fans would be so pissed that that's what they were doing and would rather them say John Carpenter's coming back and he's just going to remake his 1978 movie over again. Do you know how many fans would be like, yeah, yeah? I'd be like, what? Seriously? Oh, fuck. I wish I could get on the phone with John and be like, John, don't do that. If you're going to come back and direct something new. What, you're coming back and just remaking Halloween? But let's take John Carpenter out of the equation. It could be anybody. I would be like, really? They're just going to... and so-and-so is cast as Judith, and so-and-so is cast as young Michael, and so-and-so are cast as Michael's parents, and and then you have Bob and Linda and Annie, and it's very clear that it is shaping up to be just the same movie over again, just modernized. I'd be like, well, I mean, maybe it could be great, maybe, but that wouldn't excite me because I think that's playing it too safe because you've done that. You did it in Rob Zombie's films too. Listen, I'm not a fan of those movies, but I will give credit where credit is due. He didn't just do the same thing over again. He did do it from a bit of a different perspective, right? It's more the same than not, but it is different, right? The backstory is different. The style is a bit different. He didn't just do the same thing over again. But I think we need to get away from that. We have the original. Yes, it's dated, and obviously it will only continue to get more dated as the decades go by, but it's there. It's there. We have it. It's not going anywhere. You have Rob Zombie's remake, and I think if you want to remake Halloween, I think doing it a bit differently would be fascinating. Reimagine it. Don't just do the same thing over again. But unfortunately, a lot of fans wouldn't like that. They don't like feeling uncomfortable because of the lack of trust. They need to, that's why you saw a lot of Friday the 13th fans say, no, I just want Jason killing teens in a camp. That's it. That's all I want. That's it. That's all I want. And it's like, but you've got like 5,721 movies like that. Yeah, but that's all I want. That's what Jason is. It's like, yeah, but... Well, anyways, I went into the whole thing in my other show. But I think Halloween needs to be more than that today. But yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. Josh Lott. Hey, Josh, what's going on? Sends in $10. Says, hey, Dave, my trilogy idea. First, Michael kills Judith, but doesn't get caught until the end. Ooh. Second, Michael goes after Loomis, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Okay. And his family. Third, Loomis kills Michael. So it's a trilogy of films. And that's kind of the basic sort of emotional beats, I guess. Well, you know what? Like I said, I mean, I think that's enough there to warrant a potential. Okay, all right. Well, maybe tell me a little more, Josh. Tell me a little more. What's your, maybe go home and write me a treatment. Go home and write me a treatment. Write me a 10-page treatment, and that outlines the arc of all 3 films and the arc of the characters and the acts and all that and the emotional beats, and get it to me in a month's time or something. Fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting. So would it be set all as Michael as a child then? Because the thing is too, is that you could tell the story again. Like, look, Michael killing his sister on Halloween is sort of part of the mythology. It's part of the lore, right? It's kind of like how Batman, his parents die and that kind of stuff. But do you need to show that again? Like these superhero films, here's a question for you guys. Do you need to show that again? Do we need to see that again? Or is the story of Michael Myers, like the story of Superman, like the story of Batman, so like the backstory, I mean, is it so ingrained into the pop culture zeitgeist that we don't need to start with Michael Myers at 6 years old? That's interesting, right? And my film noir 1950s idea is a bit like that. Because you notice I said that Judith and Michael, the idea that Tony and I came up with, Judith and Michael are similar in age, right? Say Judith is 16, Michael's 14. So they're allowed to be in the same high school, together, right? And this is the 1950s. This is, Elvis Presley, pep rallies, pompadours, and, cheerleaders. And so it's, and Letterman jackets. I mean, this is like, you know what I mean? And so, but who's to say that something weird didn't happen to little Michael Myers at 6 years old? And maybe there's a flashback to that, or maybe we learn about that through the parents, but that's not what we start with. That's not what we open with. I think actually this might make a great series. Maybe even just like a 6-part miniseries or something. I don't know, with like an hour long each episode. That's 6 hours. But yeah, like that's something to think about too. Because the idea here is what is going to serve, like we know what fans are going to like, but if you're going in to pitch something, right, you've got to have a few different mindsets. This is good for the fans, and this will get the general movie, the general movie going audience on board. This is not just for fans. This is for like, we're going to be able to really get, this is juicy, right? There's an angle here. There's a hook. So people that maybe are not Halloween fans become Halloween fans. People that are kind of like semi-horror fans really dive into this show because it's great. It's not just for Halloween fans. It's got great characters. It's got great depth. It's scary. It's moody. It's atmospheric. It's like watching a great true crime show or something. You're like, whatever the case is, right? But it's still very much Halloween. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the mindset I think that anybody that would pitch anything to Malek Akkad today has to be going into. Because if you just go into his office and, and say Halloween 4 Part 2, because so many fans would love to see it, it's the best, sequel, and Danielle Harris is one of our favorite final girls, and he'd just be like, yeah, so what? Like, so what? Right? Like, and I'm with you on that. She is a beloved final girl. Her claim to fame is Halloween. She's a Halloween icon. Halloween 4 is one of the best sequels, no doubt about it. I agree with all of that. But going into his office with just, armed with sort of the buzz talking points that we all kind of say about it, ain't going to convince him, man. Like, he's just going to sit there and go, yeah, so what? He might even agree with you. Yeah, I know. Right? But he's thinking it like, what's the long term of this? Like, what are we going to do? We're going to spend 30 million or 40 million on this between production budget and marketing, and like, seriously, on a Halloween 4 Part 2? Like, he's like, where are we going to go? Like, what's our end game with this? And so you really got to think here, like, hey, here's an idea. Here's what I think we need to do now that it's 2024. Here's what I think and I'm not saying it's got to be the 50s film noir thing. I'm just saying that, there's options. And a few of you in the chat already have given some interesting ideas. I like it. No, you guys are great. All right. Carl Weidman, super chat, $5 says Godzilla -1 had the scariest Godzilla to date. Do you have enough knowledge of Godzilla and the movies to do a ranking of some kind? Not. I do have a very good knowledge of the Godzilla films, but more of the inception, more of the sort of what Godzilla was really all about. And I've seen a lot of them, but not all of them, so I couldn't rank the whole series or anything like that. But I can tell you my favorite Godzilla movies are Godzilla 1985, the American version of the 84 Japanese film. Godzilla King of the Monsters, the 2019 Monsterverse film. I think that's a terrific Godzilla movie. And I think it's the best in the Monsterverse period, even though everyone seems to hate it for some reason. The 1954 original, Japanese original, and Godzilla -1. And then there's a few of the cheesier Godzilla movies, the childlike for kids Godzilla movies, like Godzilla versus Megalon, Gigon, like those, like, you know what I mean? They're kind of fun, but yeah, no, I couldn't do a ranking of all of them because I don't know if I've even seen all of them. But I'm a big Godzilla fan. All right. And then, member chat comes in from Carl Weidman, says, I'm still waiting for a Michael Myers in space movie. Oh God, let's hope that doesn't happen, Carl. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay. Do I have all the super chats? I just want to make sure I've got them all and I'm not missing anything, folks. I believe I have. All right. Now let's jump over and see what some of you are saying that have not sent any super chats in. Let me see if I can just grab some of you, go back a little bit and see what we've got going on. We've got, let me see here. Mixed Boy says, Michael meets Loomis at the pub, takes off his mask and is like, shit, Loomis, that is all I ever wanted was a drink. There you go. 6 shots. Geeked Out Turtle Fan 44 says, here's an idea. Like Laurie in H2O, Jamie Lloyd is hidden away until Michael draws her back to Haddonfield when he kidnaps her teenage child. Again, I mean, I think these ideas, and a lot of fans will come up with some great ideas for a Halloween 4 Part 2. I even have one. I think it would be great to get Ellie Cornell back on board, although she is very much retired. And runs a bed and breakfast, I think. But I think you make it like Hush. If I was going to do a Halloween 4 Part 2, I would say, okay, I would make it like Hush. We'll spend, $5 million. And it is about Rachel has had because remember, at the end of Halloween 4, it's only in Halloween 5 that we find out that Rachel's mom survived the stabbing. But if Halloween 5 doesn't exist, and this is a sequel to Halloween 4, and I would pitch it not as a movie, I would pitch it, so maybe you'd have to spend more than $5 million, but I don't know. I would not pitch it as a movie. I would pitch it as like a 4-part miniseries. Or maybe maybe a streaming movie, like a Netflix film or something like that. I don't know, like a what if, or maybe like a miniseries. I wouldn't go in there to pitch a Halloween 4 Part 2, but if I had to, this is what I would pitch for a Halloween 4 Part 2. I would say we keep it very small. We make it like Mike Flanagan's Hush. And he goes, okay, Mike Flanagan's Hush? Strange. Okay, how? What's your idea? What do you mean by that? I'd say, okay, well, I would say at the end of Halloween 4, the last thing we see is little 7-year-old Jamie at the top of the stairs with the scissors in her hand. Loomis is, about to shoot her. And we presume that she has killed her foster mother. Now, in Halloween 5, we find out that did not happen, that she survived. But Halloween 5 doesn't exist. So I say we roll with that she ended up killing her foster mother. And of course she was possessed or, whatever the case is, she was taken over by the evil, whatever, but she was put into psychiatric care. She was, put away. And the relationship that Rachel and Jamie had was estranged. I mean, it was pretty much no longer, even though, she did feel sorry for Jamie at the same time, and it's very complicated and all that kind of stuff. And Jamie has since been released, and she is out trying to rebuild her life. And one of the things she wants to rebuild is that connection with her foster sister, because her foster sister was there that night in Halloween 4 and saved her life, arguably saved her life from Michael. I mean, if Rachel had not been there in that house, I don't know if Jamie would have survived. I mean, Michael may have got to Jamie and killed her, but Rachel was there, and they snuck up to the roof, and she dropped her off the roof or whatever. And she felt like all these things. Rachel was there. Rachel was in the truck driving, and the whole, she helped save her life. And so I think Jamie has always loved Rachel and wants to rekindle that. And so she seeks out Rachel, and Rachel is living in a cabin, and maybe with her kids or something like that or whatever. And she goes to visit her, and it's about this rebuilding, this rekindling of this, relationship, and working through that and what happened. And then Michael Myers finds them. And maybe you can set it. Maybe it's kind of snowing a bit. Again, it's not unprecedented for it to be snowing on Halloween. It has happened, especially if you live in a part of the country or the continent where that can happen. You just make it small. And it's really what drives the film is their relationship and the rekindling of that relationship. And you could even go as far as to have Jamie sacrifice herself to save Rachel's kids. You could even go that far. But Michael Myers shows up, and how and why and what he looks like, I don't fucking know. But it would be great to have, you could build suspense. You could utilize the forest. You could utilize, the cabin. Maybe it's a big cabin. Maybe there's a cabin in maybe there's multiple cabins. Or maybe it's a small little town, or who knows? Just something like that is what I would pitch. I think that would be interesting, but the core would be the relationship between Jamie and Rachel. That's what it's really all about. That's the driving force. That's what makes you want to watch, is for them and whether or not they are going to reconcile because of what happened in 1988. And so, that's something that I find interesting. Might be an interesting pitch. Alley Girl says, I would ask him to follow the anthology route or write something between Halloween 2 and H2O. Loomis trying to find Myers like at the beginning of H2O. I think I would. Look, I hear what you're saying, Alley, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that love Dr. Loomis. I think I would just, for me personally, and I know I just gave a pitch for a what if Halloween 4 part 2. And obviously it would need to be fleshed out. I mean, that's just a premise that I've laid out. You'd have to flesh it out and evolve it and all that kind of stuff. But maybe he might like that idea. He may turn to me and go, fascinating. Go away for a couple of weeks, write me a 10-page treatment, and I'll think about it. Who knows, right? But I would say to him, it's about these two characters, and that's what it's about. And even if you're not familiar with the characters from Halloween 4, you'll likely fall in love with the relationship and the dynamic between the sisters. And even if you're vaguely familiar with them from this horror movie called Halloween 4. So there's something for Halloween fans, there's something for just horror fans, there's something for movie fans, because that's important too. It's about their relationship. I think that would be incredibly important. But other than that, I would have no interest in going back and doing another sequel to a Halloween film from the past. I think it's exhausted. I think it's done. I know that the Halloween series has sort of evolved into this choose your own adventure kind of timeline, but the reality is it was never planned that way. The reality is that we got many different timelines because of sheer incompetence and greed. And as much as I love, Mustafa Akkad for, keeping the franchise going, rest in peace. And he is, from a certain point of view, the godfather of Halloween, although I do quite disagree with that label, because the godfather of, although it depends on how you want to define it, right? He definitely was the one that kept it going, for better or worse. We definitely would not have had a lot of the sequels we have if it wasn't for him, for better or worse. So that is true. But for me, when I think of the godfather of Halloween, I think of Irwin Yablans. Irwin Yablans came up with the idea to do a low-budget horror movie. He came up with the idea to call it Halloween. He came up with the idea to set it on Halloween and call it Halloween. He came up with the idea to hire John Carpenter. And he came up with the idea for the fist and the knife on the classic iconic poster that you now see. So I'm like, I mean, if that's not Godfather material, if he's not the granddaddy of Halloween, I don't know what is, right? I mean, he came up with the idea to do a low-budget horror film. He came up with the idea to set it on Halloween. He came up with the idea to call it Halloween. He came up with the idea to hire John Carpenter, and he came up with the idea for the poster. So, hey, I'm just saying. But, you know, if it's just, I don't think, it sometimes I'll say it like this, it sometimes feels like Mustafa over the years treated the Halloween franchise kind of like the Godzilla franchise, right? You know, where you're not really taking it seriously. You're just kind of, you know, to Mustafa's own words, right? God, you know, he can't die. Like he's not going to die. He's not going to die. It's like, yeah, but what are we doing? He's not Godzilla, you know? And so I think it's great that he kept the franchise going, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, because he also is responsible for the incompetence as well. And so as maybe younger Halloween fans really like the idea of all these choose-your-own-adventure timelines, but as a 45-year-old man who grew up, you know, with it in real time, watching it happen, as a lot of you who are my age and older can you know, relate to, it was incredibly frustrating and fucking annoying. I mean, it just was. It wasn't like, oh, this is great. No, it was really annoying. It was like, yeah, but you didn't finish the, and then you get going again. You go, yeah, but it was fucking annoying. It was frustrating being a Halloween fan in the late 80s and all through the 90s. And so, yeah, I personally would not be like, yeah, let's go back and do another sequel to one of the older films. I would say, no, let's either reimagine it or just do anthology. That's what I would do. Let me see here. Trying to get some. Juan Rivera says, I wouldn't mind if they took the Halloween Ends plot of Corey and just used Michael. A teen, 17-year-old babysitting, gets accused of being a killer. Then the town turns him into the Myers we know today. Juan, I could not agree with you more. I think that would be a very interesting pitch, a fascinating pitch. And it's unfortunate that it's already been done. And what I mean by that is that it's been done in Halloween Ends. I mean, you've heard me say this. I think the Corey Cunningham story would have been a fantastic beginning for an anthology series. I don't know about a movie, but certainly an anthology series. It would have been great, you know, because like it would, yeah, like it's, and you could have had Jamie Lee Curtis in it. You could have had Andy Matichak in it. Like you could have connected it to the David Gordon Green trilogy. And that might have been interesting. And that might have had that fandom crossover sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's just so unfortunate that they sort of did that there, because to do it now, there'd be comparisons to Halloween Ends, you know, and it'd be kind of like, well, didn't we just kind of do this? But that's what Corey was. I mean, he was a metaphor for that beginning again in a lot of ways. And, you know, it's a hill I will die on. Michael Myers does not need to be in Halloween Ends. I mean, he needs to be in Halloween Ends because of how they wrote it. But I mean, for the Corey Cunningham story to work, you don't need Michael Myers. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. Halloween Ends was pretty good until Michael Myers showed up. Then it went to the shitter, because it was like, I was actually kind of into it. You know, it felt like an anthology film. You didn't need Michael. And all the, you know, political subtext and social commentary that you want to deliver, you could still deliver it without him. So yeah, no, I agree. It's too bad that story really has already been told in a lot of ways. All right. Scared Straight Production says they will never make a sequel to Halloween 3 since it did poorly. No one other than Halloween fans know what Halloween 3 is. Well, here's the thing. I sort of agree with you, but let me just say this. I like Halloween 3, but I don't love it, and I don't like it as much as some people really like it. I don't think they should do a sequel to Halloween 3. Not because it did poorly at the box office, but to your point, because it is very niche. And I think you're in a position where you can just remake Halloween 3. Just remake it. Even in a series form. With a bigger budget, flesh out the characters more, give it a real paranoid, dystopian feel. Don't peak too soon. Like really flesh it and just remake it. Just tell it as if you've never told it before. And by that way, you'll get Halloween fans on board, but you'll also get new fans on board because you're not relying heavily on, having a cameo from Tom Atkins no, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Just remake it. I think a remake of the Season of the Witch story with a bigger budget, and making it a series where you can flesh it out, I think would be great. And that's a pitch that I would do. Yeah, that's a pitch that I would do. And yeah, that would be my other pitch. If he didn't like my film noir 1950s Halloween pitch, I would then turn to the just remaking Halloween 3 and making it a series. Of course, I don't know what the longevity of a series like that would be, but it's interesting. Dude says, or Carpenter returns, making a direct sequel to the original set right after, with Myers killing Laurie in the opening scene and escaping. Myers gets trapped in a flooded building and presto. Is that what you would pitch to him? Would you pitch that to him? You're in Malek Akkad's office. You've only got 5 minutes. That's it. And this is what you're going to pitch. Not that the idea isn't in and of itself good, but remember what I said at the top of the show. I said, let's have some fun and take this really seriously, right? Do you think that's the best one? I only say that because I don't think he's going to want to go back. I don't think he's going to do that. Because I don't think anything that Halloween does moving forward will be going back. Unless he wants to go back and do a prequel series with Michael Myers locked up in Smith's Grove, right? Which I am absolutely against. I do not want to see that. But in terms of going back and keeping 1978 canon, I could see a scenario where that happens. My argument against it, if he said, well, I would, I love your stuff here, but I think I'm just going to do this prequel series called Loomis. I'd be like, no, why? I shouldn't do it. I'd say, no, Malek, you shouldn't. I'd say because you're going to demystify Loomis further and you're going to demystify Michael further. And I've always been of the mindset that, Dr. Loomis was a regular, ordinary child psychiatrist before he met Michael Myers. And when he met Michael Myers, it changed his outlook on everything. It made him question science and faith and religion and, God and the devil and evil and all this kind of stuff. It made him question. He's a man of science. He's a psychiatrist. He's a doctor. And if you want to do a Loomis series where, it's all these patients before Michael, then you're going to have to, for the show to work and be interesting, you're going to have to make all kinds of crazy kids that he's met. And I don't believe that's true. I don't believe he's met all kinds of crazy kids. I believe he's met, fucked up children, sure, but nothing like Michael Myers. And so I don't think it's going to work because I don't want to demystify Loomis that way. And I don't want you to do a show where you're demystifying Michael. So we're seeing these, I spent 8 years trying to reach him, another 7 trying to keep him locked up. So so what? We're going to do a series where we watch the 8 years where he's trying to reach him and the 7 where he's trying to keep him locked. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see it. Why do we live in this world where so many fans need everything explained to them, everything demystified for them, all the mystique destroyed? I just don't get it. And I don't know if it's a younger generation thing or just the way things are now. I don't know, but I would never do that. Now, if they do that, am I going to be there day one? Well, of course, because I'm a Halloween fan and I want to check it out. I want to see, how it's done. Is it done exactly how I think it's going to be done? Or are they going to blow me away and impress me? And you know what I mean? I just don't want to see, like, from a story narrative perspective, in order to justify a story, unless you're following somebody else other than Michael, and Michael sort of takes a back seat. But if the focus is on Michael, and it's heavily focused on Michael because of his inception, because of the foundation, and you're telling me that this is in the same world as the 1978 original, then you're going to demystify him further. You're going to kill the mystique. It's over. David Gordon Green, whether you like Halloween Ends or not, it's over. It's done. Any story moving forward should not connect to the 1978 original, in my opinion. It's over. It's over. Because now if you don't connect it to the 1978 original, it allows you a little bit of creative freedom and liberty with the character of Michael Myers, as long as the DNA is still there. But you can explore a few other things. You can, you know what I'm saying? And you can do that because you're not bound by the rules set in the original. So yeah, as far as series go, anthology. Do an anthology. Don't do the Loomis years. Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ. That's how I feel about it anyway. All right, have I missed any super chats? I don't think I have. I think the last one was a few moments ago. I just want to double check over here and make sure. I don't believe I have. It looks like no. Okay, just want to make sure. Just want to make sure, ladies and germs. Just want to make sure. All right. IDT Kennel says, I find that interesting, but that's just that I'm always interested in what drove this person to do the terrible things they did, but that's just me. Oh, I see. You're talking about the series. Yeah, and there's nothing, IDT, there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But I know this. The reason why Michael is better in the earlier films than he is in the later films, from a story perspective, from an execution perspective, is because the thing that John, you can track this all the way back to the root, to the very first film. Because of the kind of movie the original Halloween was, right? Its inception. Because of the foundation it was built on. It was built on the foundation. The story was written in such a way that its sole purpose for existing was to create a story that lived in ambiguity and mystique and mystery, because it was a film that was about suspense and mood and the unknown and that theater of the mind. And Irwin Yablans even said in many interviews over the years, he's told me personally, he said, I wanted to make a low budget horror movie because even at that time in the 70s, a lot of horror movies were becoming, bloodier and gorier, and the exploitation and splatter and all that kind of stuff. And even at that time, he wanted to do an old school horror movie that was, his words, theater of the mind, right? More suspense, more Hitchcock. Well, that is a very specific type of tool for filmmakers. It's a very specific type of execution that requires a very specific set of tools and a very specific set of circumstances and a very specific set of rules. And that's the foundation for the original Halloween. And the original character of Michael Myers, more specifically the character of Michael Myers. Because you can always open things up, but more specifically the character of Michael Myers. And so when you move to Halloween 2, 1981, although I still think it's the best sequel in the franchise, there's a big difference, right? And everything after that has been just appealing to the modern times of horror movies. Halloween 2 needed to be bloodier and gorier and more violent because of Friday the 13th, because of the other low-budget slasher movies, because in a very short period of time, this is what people were going to see now. So instead of doing a sequel that was in the vein and in the same lane and almost the same subgenre as its predecessor, so it feels like a natural organic extension all around, they broke that in order to be able to compete with the other mainstream horror films of its time. The original Halloween feels like it's on an island because it is, because it's a very specific type of horror movie. And a very specific type of Michael Myers. And that specific type of Michael Myers has a shelf life. That specific Michael Myers from Halloween 1, that Michael Myers has a shelf life. Because that Michael Myers works best really in one movie. Or maybe two movies, right? If you were to follow suit and not try to appease the pulse of the genre at its time. But that kind of Michael Myers cannot have 9 movies. Because in order to keep it going, the reason why that Michael works is because of mystique, because of ambiguity, because of mystery, because of the unknown, because of the theater of the mind. So the Michael Myers you get in Halloween 6 is a shell of what he was in 1. The movie is a shell. The execution is a shell. And you can call me a gatekeeper and a party pooper, whatever you want to call me, but those are the facts, man. And for years and years and years, sequels have been trying to put a square peg into a round hole because they've been trying to, and so think, oh, you're trying to connect it to the original. Nothing connects to the original. I mean, thankfully, it was so ambiguous that you can somehow make things kind of seem like in the original. No, but it's not really like that, right? It's not really like that, right? And so I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think it's time for the Halloween franchise and for Michael Myers to move forward. If you want Michael Myers to move forward, I think it's now time for the franchise. If you want to do the Michael Myers thing, I think it's time for the franchise now to reboot with Michael Myers, but not like they did with Rob Zombie. I give credit where credit is due, right? He didn't just do the same thing over again, but I think that's too stylized. I think that's too far away from the DNA of what Halloween is. I think he strayed too far away. I don't think he was the right man for that. He's more Texas Chainsaw, House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects. I mean, he's not Halloween, in my opinion. But I think it's time to remake and reboot him now, but reimagine the story. What that means, I don't know. It could mean everything from my pitch about the 1950s film noir thing, and there's a whole spectrum in between, right? It's not like that, and, there's many things you could do. But I think, like what I think they're trying to do with Friday the 13th, You don't want to alienate fans, so it still has to feel like Halloween. The DNA still has to be there. It's still got to feel like Halloween. But you've got to evolve it, elevate it. When I say elevate, I don't mean make it like Hereditary or The Shining and somehow it's this cerebral psychological film that is night and day from, I don't mean that. I just mean elevate in terms of evolve, right? Let's push it a little further now, especially if you're going to do a series. If you're going to do a Halloween series, right, and you want to make, each episode 45 minutes, you're going to have to evolve it because now you have all this time to play. Whereas before you could deliver a 90-minute movie, well, now you have potentially 9 hours over one season. Well, that's a lot of story, a lot of character, a lot of development, a lot of story, which could be a great thing. It could be a wonderful thing for the Halloween franchise and maybe the Friday the 13th franchise and maybe Freddy Krueger. And so, yeah, like it's so fascinating. But I think if you want to move forward with Michael Myers, that's what you need to do. I don't think, like with Jason, I don't think you just literally do the same thing over again, but it's set in a different time period. It's like, we need to, like, we've seen this already. We need to evolve this. We need to evolve it. Or just don't do it. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Or spend $20 million and make a fucking open world Halloween video game like Grand Theft Auto. I would love it. I would love it. I would love it, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we'll go a few more minutes here. The Oct says, I would tell Malek, retcon all but the original, and every season episode takes place with different characters in a different year in Haddonfield. Season 1 could be 1979 and so on. Interesting. Okay. And every season episode takes place with a different character set in 1979. So I see what you're saying. I see. Now, are you then building up to Michael Myers returning? Or is it really a story about the aftermath of the residual effects from 1978 and you just kind of go on from there? You know what a cool story would be? A cool thing would be, this might make a great series too. It's anthology. But maybe you keep Halloween 1 and 2 canon. So unlike what David Gordon Green's trilogy did by removing, the first one, removing everything but the first one. If you are going to go back, which I don't think they're going to do, and I don't think they should keep anything canon. But if they were going to, maybe you keep 1, as you said, but maybe also 2, so that the residual effects and the stain on the town of Haddonfield can be that much greater, right? So it's not just like 3 or 4 people that died. It's like 15, 16, 17 people that died. There wasn't just a massacre on this street with these babysitters. There was a massacre at the hospital with doctors and nurses and patients. And do you know what I mean? And maybe that's interesting, right? And then maybe the series is just kind of like what John Carpenter wanted to originally do with Halloween 4, which was really this story about the town and the suppression of Halloween and the residual effects and how the town is coping and all that kind of stuff. And they ironically bring Michael Myers back, but it wouldn't be really him in my idea. It would be sort of like a Corey thing. There might be something there. Again, it's kind of been done in Halloween Ends already, but maybe there's something else you can do. I don't know. Solid Saturn 03 says, I think it would be cool if a Halloween anthology series with each season a different mystery story. It would be cool, but maybe you set it in the Halloween universe, right? So at least there's that connective tissue, right? At least there's that DNA that's there. Right? There's that connective tissue, that DNA that's there. And maybe that's what you do. It is an idea. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, what about a series dealing with the aftermath of the 78 events? Yeah, I was just saying that. But also add anthology elements within the aftermath. That way Michael is only in the past and not in the present. Yeah, I think there's something I think there's something to be said there. I think there's something that you could build around that. There is potentially something there, which is interesting. Mike Mack sends in $4.99. Thank you, Mike. Says, hey, Dave, any update on a new Two Dudes episode in the future? I miss my two dudes talking bullshit. Not yet. I did reach out to Tony a couple of weeks ago. He said he's, he wants to get back to it, but he's just been so busy at the moment with his photography. So I don't have a specific date yet, but definitely, I would like obviously to get back into, even if we did it once a month, or something like that. It could be something that may, we may be able to do. So I will definitely check in with him again and see how he's feeling and what his schedule is like, but no immediate word yet. But we're so close to 200 episodes. We got to at least get to 200, right? Am I right? I'm right. Of course I'm right. Next Gen says, I think Ends is actually the perfect example of what they can do with an anthology series. It's true. And I think in a lot of ways, that's why Halloween Ends is divisive and not it depends on who you ask. If you absolutely hate the movie and you surround yourself with people that hate the movie and you just, listen to people that hate the movie, then it could come across that people that, everybody hates the movie. But the reality is not everybody hates the film. It's divisive. There are many people that like Halloween Ends and have good justifiable reasons for it. And then there are people that hate Halloween Ends and have good justifiable reasons for it. I'm just kind of in the middle. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But I do recognize that the Corey Cunningham story would have been a great anthology piece. It would have been a great anthology piece. And like I just said, connecting to, whatever Halloween Ends ended up being. That's what I would have said. If I was in the writing room and David Gordon Green had pitched that, I would have said, hey, I like that idea, but not for Halloween Ends. Let's stay the course. Let's bring it in. Let's not do something avant-garde for the sake of being avant-garde and suppressing expectations. Let's bring it in. We don't have to we can make it traditional, but we can still make it great and scary and ominous. I talked about, there's a McRae Live, I don't know if it's a McRae Live episode, but certainly there's a stream on my channel. If you just type in Dave McRae, Halloween Ends, my idea or something. And I talk about what I would have done. And, a thunderstorm is involved and it's a whole, I personally, although I'm a bit biased, I personally think that my idea would have been a better way to go than what they delivered. And then what you do is you use the Corey Cunningham story as your jumping off point for your anthology television series. And you tell that story. You tell that story. I wouldn't necessarily set the story with Halloween 18, although maybe I would. But I would jump to after the events of Halloween Ends. You could totally do that. Unbeknownst to us, while the crazy shit was going down with Michael Myers, this poor all-American kid who was going to, go to college, fucks up his life totally by accident. He's found acquitted and he's in the town and everybody hates his guts. And and the suppression, the bullying and the psychological effects that he feels, the irony of the story, and this is part of the story of Halloween Ends, but it's not fulfilled. This part of the story isn't fulfilled. This part of the story doesn't conclude because Corey ends up dying. And so the tools are there, but it doesn't come to fruition. And I think it would be terrific. That's why it would have made a better anthology story, because you could have had Jamie Lee Curtis in it, maybe even for the first few episodes or something. You could have had Andy Matichek in it. You could have had the same story. And Laurie could have recognized it. Oh my God, I've seen those eyes before, and everything she says. But Michael Myers it's about Corey. It's about the irony that the town is facing all this trauma. There I go, trauma, but this PTSD, and they want to move on. But the irony is they end up creating a new Michael Myers, quote unquote. And that's the irony of it. That's sort of the irony, is that they're trying to move on and they're bullying this Corey. But the irony is that they end up bullying him into what he becomes. And then they end that is, that obviously has to be fleshed out, but that is great. That's a great story. That in and of itself, away from Michael Myers, no Michael Myers, that's a great story. And a lot of people, that's a story that has universal appeal. That's a story that wouldn't just, appeal to Halloween fans. That's a story that might just make a great TV series, right? And so, yeah, no, I agree. I think it's one of those things that yeah. Look, what would you do if you had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad, ladies and gentlemen? What would you do? If you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section and let me know. If you had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad in his office, what would you do? What would you do? Scared Straight Production says, hey, Dave, any idea when the trailer for Billy 3? Well, not Billy 3, you mean Billy 2. No, but probably in the summer at some point, probably maybe late August, maybe a couple of months before the film comes out. No, I think you meant 2. There will be no Billy 3. Once Billy is done, we are moving on to original projects that we will seek funding for. And we have a few ideas, a couple of them feature films. But yeah, we want to move away from the Billy films and now start to move on to original IP, so we can, make money, finally get paid to make a movie, and also seek distribution and be able to make money from the movie, obviously, which we can't do with the Black Christmas films because they're not-for-profit tribute films. So, but yeah, no Billy 3. As I've said many times, the Billy films were created specifically as a tribute, to pay tribute to Black Christmas because of the 50th anniversary, and we're Canadian, it's Canadian, and we wanted to honor the film, and we did it professionally and totally pro, and that was all, of course, on purpose, and we're very proud of them. But they're not-for-profit fan tribute films, so we don't own the intellectual property. We cannot make any money from it. We did not make money making the movie, myself and Bruce, because we were the producers, so we can't legally. And so, and of course they were to build our portfolios and showcase what we can do. And it's been great. It's been absolutely great. And it's going to be great to be able to have them as part of our portfolio. But moving forward, if you want to have a career as a filmmaker, you can't just make fan films, right? Because you can't make money from them. So you have to, no matter how professional you make them, you have to move on to original IP. So there will be no Billy 3. There'll be no Billy 3. And I will not be making any more Halloween fan films. I will not be making any more Black Christmas fan films or fan films, which also include Halloween fan films. Yeah. So just so people know, because every now and then people ask me, oh, you should do this fan film. You should do that fan film. And I'm like, I'm 45 years old. I want to start, I've spent 23 years in the entertainment bit. No, 23 years. 23 years in the entertainment business. And I really now want to start making a go at it as a filmmaker. So, yeah, no Billy 3, but the trailer for Billy 2 is coming this summer. Alex Shambach says, nobody else can play Laurie, in my opinion. Jamie Lee Curtis brought the star power and the fair weather fans. I disagree. I think Jamie Lee Curtis will always be Laurie Strode to you. But I disagree that she is the only one that can play it. I mean, we only have one other example, which of course is Scout Taylor Compton, right? I think that's her name. And so, I disagree. I respectfully disagree. I think there are actors. I don't subscribe unless there's a very specific, very, very specific, unique reason. I don't subscribe to the idea that only one actor can. I do subscribe to the idea that you become emotionally attached to an actor, so therefore they will always be that character to you. Well, yes, of course, because of nostalgia, because you grew up with them. It's just so embedded into your pop culture brain. But just like any character, there are other actors that can do it, and can make you change your mind. I mean, you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, the amount of Freddie fans that got in touch with me and said, listen, I was a Robert or nobody guy, But what you did absolutely blew me away. And it's not like I had a lot of time to do anything either. I mean, I was only on screen for a very short period of time. Hopefully we get to do the follow-up and make it a feature, and then I can be on screen longer and play a lot more and really showcase what I can do. My sandbox was very limited. But there were lots of people that said, what you did was amazing, you know, and that's, I don't share that as a means to say that I should be the next Freddy. I share that by saying that's an example of that it can be done, right? It can be done. I mean, at the very least, I was able to show that somebody could do it justice. But also the pool is not that big. You've got Robert Englund and you've got Jackie Earle Haley. And Jackie Earle Haley, we all kind of agree that it really, really wasn't the issue. It was really the film and the makeup and you know, whatever. But like the pool's not very big. Robert and Jackie. Nobody else can play it but Robert. How the fuck do you know? No, nobody else. Robert will always be your Freddy. Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. But even Robert Englund knows that people can play it, right? And so, yeah, I don't subscribe to that. I understand why people do. Totally get it. Totally understand it. But I've never subscribed to it. Like Harrison Ford will always be my Indiana Jones and Han Solo. But I've been on record as to saying, I think he might be a little too old now, but I've been on record as saying that I think, you know, Hugh Jackman would have made a great Indiana Jones. Like maybe 20 years ago, he would have been a great Indiana Jones. You know, he's handsome, he's fit, he's tall. He can do a great, you know, American accent. He's been, you know, that 5 o'clock shadow and, you know, hanging out with the ladies and the adventure. I think he would have been a great Indiana Jones. I do. I think Harrison Ford obviously will always be my Indiana Jones, but I think Hugh Jackman would have made a great Indiana Jones. And so, but again, maybe it's because I look at things a bit differently, but I understand. I mean, Laurie Strode is arguably Jamie Lee Curtis's, you know, most recognizable role. And she's not wrong when she says that when she dies, the headlines will be Halloween star dies, you know, or it might be Halloween and, you know, everything everywhere all at once star dies or something. I mean, but Halloween will be in there. It'll be in there. It's her most iconic role. It'll definitely be in there for sure. It'll definitely be in there for sure. All right. We'll go a little bit longer, but then I have to skedaddle, folks. WJC says definitely keep H1 and H2 canon and do where they don't celebrate Halloween, but eventually the town begins to celebrate again, but make it where murders begin to happen similar to the murders in 78. Yeah, and maybe you don't know who it is. And folks, it doesn't have to be Michael Myers, right? Michael Myers can be dead. Like if you keep Halloween, okay, if you were to keep 78 and 81 canon, let's say you do that and they do it again. You don't have to bring Michael Myers back. Like you don't have to. If you create a strong story like the Corey Cunningham thing, I believe this. I believe that if the Corey Cunningham story was not in Halloween Ends and it was in a different film or a different series altogether, those Halloween fans that despise Corey Cunningham and despise that story would not despise it if it was in a different story, in a different film. I think it's just location. It's story. It feels like it's impeding, and in a lot of ways it is. It's intrusive. It's like, what is this? Why am I watching this in the third act of a play? Like, I don't understand. Why are we introducing this now? Right? Like, what is going on here? It feels too intrusive. It feels out of place. And they're not wrong. But I think a lot of Halloween fans could get behind the Corey Cunningham-esque story if it was told from the beginning and it didn't feel shoehorned in. And you let it grow organically so it felt connected to the universe. You know what I mean? I believe that. I do. Because it's great, because it could be great storytelling and great characters. It might be, essentially it would be a character-driven series rather than a plot-driven series. And I think that would be really awesome. I think it'd be really awesome. Okay, we'll go 5 more minutes, folks. We'll go 5 more minutes, and then we will call it a day. We'll call it a day. Let me see here. Next Gen says, I think Ends is actually the perfect example of what they can. Oh, no, I think I already read that. I read that earlier. Warren Armour says, you would think that with so much modern technology, etc., school would go away like the VHS tape and 8-track tapes and even the horse and buggy. Horse and buggy. School would go away? You must be talking to somebody else. I'm not sure what you mean. Robert Kitzmiller says, what about using Michael in the same vein as Godzilla? He essentially acts as the repercussion of war, maybe set in during today's age where there is a total blackout of electricity. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let me say this. I don't know if that's the right way to go, but damn it, Rob, I love that you went there. I love that you took a risk and went that. It might be a little too distant from the DNA. I might want to reel you back in just a smidgy. But I like that you went there. You know, in acting, it's always easier to pull someone back than it is to push them forward. So, for example, when I used to teach a voiceover workshop, one of the things I would, a lot of new actors tend to be a little apprehensive behind the microphone or maybe a little apprehensive in front of the camera. But one of the things that I would often say is, just let loose and go all out, even if you don't think it's correct, because it's much easier to reel you in than it is to push you forward. And so, yeah, I like that you went there. I like that you just kind of made a ballsy move. Like, what if Michael Myers was like Godzilla? And maybe more of a metaphor and symbolic. Like maybe he is dead but his presence is there and it's there in strange ways. And it's interesting. And maybe it is, you do Charlie Bowles, but I don't know. You do something else set in the Haddonfield Halloween universe. Like I've said before, you could make a television anthology series and call it Haddonfield, where it's all kinds of fucked up and weird different stories set within that universe. There's many different ways. 5 minutes with Malek Akkad. 5 minutes with Malek Akkad. What would you say? What would you pitch? Remembering to think not just as a fan, but as a filmmaker, as a producer, as a writer, from the business side. Because the fandom is like, yeah, just do Halloween 4, get Danielle Harris and just, it's like, yeah, okay, but how are we going to make money? Well, Halloween fan, no, yeah. But to the other people, not Halloween fans, I know we're going to make money from Halloween fans. How are we going to make the big money? You know what I mean? How are we going to do it? Right? You got to think like a producer. You got to put that producer cap on. So when you jump into the comment section below and let me know, make sure, don't just give me one sentence, oh, they can just do this. Tell me how. I'm going to make you work for it. I'm going to make you work for it. I'm going to make you work for that heart from me. I'm going to make you work for that heart from me. Okay. Have I got all the super chats, folks? I just want to make sure I've got them all. I believe I do. Yes, I do. All right, ladies and germs, listen. That is going to do it for me here on this episode of McRae Live. If you are watching after the fact or watching live right now, when this is done, jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. What would you do if you had 5 minutes with Malek Akkad? This is about you. Jump into the comment section. Let me know. There were some great ideas in the chat room, some things that we've kind of talked about here on the channel before, but some different ideas, some new ideas. I like the way a lot of you were thinking. I like the way, where you're going with it. You're thinking, you know what I mean? You're thinking, okay, what can we do here that's not just the same thing over again, that it is, but we're not removing the DNA. It still feels like Halloween, it still tastes like Halloween, still smells like Halloween, still looks like Halloween, but it is different. It's got an injection of adrenaline. It is fresh. It is new. It has evolved. But it's exciting. Jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts. 5 minutes with Malek Akkad. He's ready. Pretend Malek is reading this. You never know. I don't know if he is or isn't. I have no idea. Like I said, you do the YouTube thing long enough, you'd be surprised who watches you. Now, I'm not saying Malek or anybody from Trancas or Miramax does. I'm just simply saying, and nor would they necessarily use your idea. I'm just simply saying, show them the passion. Show your Halloween passion in the comment section. And let them know. Let them know. What's your idea? What do the Halloween fans want? What do they want? What do they want? I don't know, folks. Thank you for all the super chats that came in today. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you for the member chats as well. If you want to become a member here on the channel, hit that join button and pick one of the 2 tiers that are available. Thank you, of course, my moderators, of course, as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you for doing what you guys do. I will be back with another episode of McRae Live very soon. But sometimes it's always nice to chat about Halloween. But jump into the comment section and let me know, what do you want? 5 minutes with Malek Akkad. Go! All right, folks. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.